He did not want to be a pretty boy, a golden boy. Oh, God, you're so handsome.
I was very comfortable with him once, I got past being speechless.
What he did, make fly fishing, cinematic, it's ballet, it's gorgeous.
You bring to the screen your own experience, your own wisdom gained from your own experience.
And now, Bravo profiles Robert Redford. He's an American icon.
You're not as tough as you think. You kidding me? He's the Sundance Kid. Yeah, he's one of our greats.
I'm Bob Woodward of the Washington Post.
This is Joe Turner. How do you do, old sport? I'm Gatsby. Has either made or acted in the best movies that America's ever produced.
One of the great operative words about Bobby is romantic.
The romance of life, the romance of adventure. Those are things which feel very strongly to him.
He's a very sexy guy, and he's hot. He really is. He's a great kisser. I'll give you that.
Robert Redford is the quintessential American actor and filmmaker. He's an American pioneer.
There's enough in this country to go on forever. The stories to be told, aspects of ourselves. I've been given the thing that I most want, which is to do my own work the way I want to do it and put it out there. And the rest is not my business, as T.S. Eliot said. There's only the trying.
Long seen as the embodiment of smooth romantic perfection, Redford resists his golden boy image and at heart is a rebellious artist and driven environmentalist. He spent a lifetime exploring the beautiful, optimistic promises of America and the hypocrisies and ugly realities that lie just below the surface.
Underneath that graciousness, you can feel a volume of anger, displeasure, outrage.
Preserving the environment is associated with a threat to progress. I think that's almost, Neanderthal.
For over 30 years, Redford has been an outspoken environmentalist.
How can environmental concerns be a battle? It should be a given. It's like motherhood. It's a given. People love to sing the Star Spangled Banner, and they love to talk about American, good old apple pie America and that kind of stuff, but when push comes to shove, it's what money is going to do.
A pragmatic visionary, Redford is an outsider by nature who's used his success to change the established order.
Bob has always been a loner, even as he sets up something as interactive as Sundance, still done from the perspective of an outsider, outside the studio system.
When he had to think things over, when he had to be alone, he would hop on a horse, ride off for 2 or 3 days, just disappear in the mountains, and come back refreshed and knowing how he had to approach it all.
He hasn't played the game completely the way everybody else wanted him to do it. That's admirable.
In more than 40 films over 40 years, as a world-renowned actor and Academy Award-winning director, Redford has crafted a restrained, almost minimalist style that sets him apart.
Redford always had a kind of ease in front of the camera. He never felt obligated to be interesting, which is the start of how you become interesting in front of a camera. They come from a very Celtic, dark background. A lot of silences. You don't complain about anything. You just take it to yourself, and you figure it out for yourself. You work it out for yourself. One thing is linked to another from my own personal experience, so it becomes whatever grows from it is really a reflection about, I guess, who I am and how I see the world from my own experiences. I believe that single moments actually trigger change. They're like moments that hit you when you say, this is it. From this point on, I'm no longer going to be that. I'm going to be this.
Redford's career-making role came at age 32 opposite Paul Newman in George Roy Hill's 1969 hit Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Early on, Redford felt an immediate connection to the quiet, ironic outsider, Sundance, even though the role belonged to Newman.
And that time, the title of that picture was called The Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy. That was the original title. Because Paul was going to play the Sundance Kid.
At that moment, they wanted 2 really well-known names. He had done a few movies, but not one that went over the top yet.
I'll jump first. I can't swim! Why, are you crazy? The fall will probably kill you. Oh, yeah!
Redford was not the first choice for Butch Cassidy. Other actors been mentioned, from Steve McQueen to Marlon Brando to Warren Beatty and company.
Facing stiff competition for the part, Redford won unexpected support from Paul Newman and his wife, Joanne Woodward.
I never met him. I went back and ran some of his films, and then Joanne read the script, and she said it's marvelous, and the only guy that can play it is Bob Redford.
But convincing the director would still take time.
I met George Roy Hill in a bar in New York. In our conversation, I said, that's the part that interests me. And by the end of the time we were together, he saw the same thing. He said, well, this is interesting. Just hang in.
I had to wait for 6 months and just have faith. And I was surprised when it happened.
When we're done, he's dead. You're welcome to stay.
Listen, I don't mean to be a sore loser, but when it's done, if I'm dead, kill him.
Not to.
For Redford, Sundance would become more than a film character. He would give the name to a piece of land that would become part of a dream.
Sundance started as a preservation idea, to preserve the land that I thought was exquisite. I started with 2 acres there in 1961 for $500. And I built my own cabin there. I was living happily until people started sniffing around saying, ooh, there's something going on here. And so I panicked and bought the land from a sheep herder, 3,700 acres.
We fell in love with it, and it was the most pure thing on this earth.
He finds mystery out there, some kind of personal nourishment that he doesn't find in public or in society.
Redford's desire to be alone in the wilderness was mirrored in the 1972 film Jeremiah Johnson. It was loosely based on the true story of a Mexican war veteran who headed into the Rockies to become a mountain man and trapper.
Just where is it I could find bear, beaver, and other critters worth cash money when skinned? Right due west to the sunset.
The film was directed by Sidney Pollack and partly filmed on Redford's own undeveloped land in the mountains of Utah.
Because it was on my property, most of it, there was something extremely personal about the truth of living in the wilderness and how hard it is. And this is a guy who starts out with nothing. He can't shoot. He can't light a fire. He can't do anything. And he becomes a master of the mountains and the wilderness.
Redford believed strongly in the film, but Pollack and the studio weren't so sure.
This was a weird movie. It wasn't a Western. It wasn't an action picture. It was a mountain man picture. Well, what the hell is that? His interest was on a slim thread. And I put a lot of energy into trying to keep his interest alive. They were going to pull the plug, which was fine with me. But he was advanced $200,000. Bob had taken the $200,000 and put it into Sundance. He couldn't get it back out. So he was stuck. And he was ready to kill me if I bailed out and left him stuck.
Redford convinced Pollack and the studio to stand by the project, but on a limited budget.
We couldn't really afford to shoot the way you would normally shoot. We used Bob's horses. My brother did costumes. I shot it, didn't even have a cameraman. I couldn't afford it. Shooting it was a monster. Cold, hypothermia, lost 22 crew members. It was hard. And the only thing that propels you through those kind of hard things is some kind of passion or belief in what you're doing. There's something that slowly accumulates in a performance by Redford. It's played in the silences as much as it's in the words.
But the subtle appeal wasn't immediately apparent to the studio.
People fall asleep in the dailies. There was nothing to watch. I mean, there's hardly any dialogue in that movie. You got an Indian woman who speaks flat-head Indian. You got him who speaks neither. Then you got a boy who's mute. Well, that's the characters. The studio didn't have the faintest idea what to do with it. They put it on the shelf for a year and a half. It sat there, just not released. Redford woke me up one morning and said, wake up, man. They just opened the picture, and they did $30, $40 million with that movie. It was a huge success.
Worth a couple?